Hello and welcome everyone, I am Madals and welcome to Game 2 of this best of 3. It is from HP Trophy 2. Let me introduce these two players. In the lower right position, we do have the green Terran, it is LucifroN, and in the top left, the orange Protoss. It is of course MaNa. These two have already played one game, which if you haven't watched, I strongly suggest you go and check it out, because my goodness was it good. And well, if you have checked it out, you'll know of course that LucifroN is one game up. MaNa went for what was only able to be described as one of the greediest PvT openings I have ever seen. One gate, Nexus, Cybernetics Core, Nexus. And LucifroN went for a lovely +1 timing push with Stim Combat Shield, a few Marines, a few Marauders, and a couple of Medevacs. And MaNa with pure gateway units was just like, not gonna work. I can't defend against a strong infantry force when I've gone for a third command center. Don't have many gateways out, don't have many units out, and don't have any tech out. As a result, LucifroN comfortably took game 1, so we'll wait and see whether MaNa chooses to adapt his playstyle. Of course, he may need to. The things you can look at on this map as a Protoss player is of course utilising the cliff with a blink ob strategy. That's something you can hope to do, but it's not ideal because this cliff area is very near to the wall off, so you can run into some problems there. Other things you can look at doing on this map is, well, taking a quick expansion. It's always safe to do so because this area is so narrow. You can get into some very nice positions there for both players. So I'm expecting to see LucifroN go for a 1-Rax command center opening, to be honest. The gas is on its way, so we're seeing a variation from game 1 already from MaNa, going for a more traditional style play at the moment at least. LucifroN sending this SCV scout out at a similar time, again getting this very low health supply depot just to deny any scouting from his opponent, which I think is a great move. It's then coming more into fashion, and when you know you've got to get that supply depot down anyway, why not? The only downside is that, well, there isn't actually a downside, it's fine, it just denies the scouting, so suddenly that leaves MaNa thinking, is my opponent going for something aggressive? Is he going for, say, a 1-1-1 style play? Any form of aggression early on is going to be concerning to you. Alternatively, is he just getting down a command center first and is trying to hide that scouting information from me? Both leave question marks, and when you've got question marks, you're unable to deduce as accurately what your opponent is trying to do and therefore prepare for it. Meanwhile, the scout for LucifroN is getting all the information required, sees the gas timings, sees the drones and the probes and gas, sees the gateway and the cyber core coming down, and most importantly, sees that there isn't that nexus yet. So obviously the nexus could be coming down at some time soon, but for the moment LucifroN will be comfortable knowing that nothing too crazy is happening. The only concern he could have, but I very doubt we'll see it now, is a 4-gate style play, because you'd see the obviously chrono boost on the Cybernetics Core, but not that great against Terran anyway, so no sort of all-in displayed yet from MaNa, and therefore LucifroN should be fairly comfortable keeping that SCV alive for a long time as well. The important thing he's checking for is where's the chrono boost going. The chrono boost is the real key piece of information required. The SCV does now get taken down though. That is unfortunate for LucifroN, who now won't know what's going to happen. There is enough minerals for MaNa to take down his Nexus, so looks like a more standard timing on the 1-gate Nexus, obviously with the cyber core before the expansion. So that is very different to what LucifroN's doing. This game going for this super greedy economical build, getting up the 1-Rax command center opening. Therefore, he'll flow one down, keep the other one in his main, get the extra orbital command, which ultimately leaves you more mules and a scan if you need it, but also much better worker production, which should allow you to pull ahead in terms of the economy. So MaNa, if he does scout it, can try and exploit that, getting up 3 gates now after the Nexus, so definitely a much nicer build. A huge adjustment to what we saw in game 1, where LucifroN was able to put on so much pressure and eventually win the game with that. MaNa adjusting his build, making sure that I'm safer now earlier on, I'm ready to deal with any aggression you may throw at me, and sort of mind games coming out from LucifroN in the sense that, well, I won last game with aggression and you were too greedy. You're probably going to play safer now, which means I can try and take an advantage, because being a best of 3, MaNa obviously doesn't want to lose this game on a risk, so LucifroN happy to take a bit of a risk, getting up that 3rd command center super fast, because if he loses the game, he takes it to game 3, and that's fine for him. Now, looking up for MaNa, robotics facility on its way, the 3 gateways are now complete, warp gate tech finished as well. Chrono boost coming down on the probes, we've got the 3rd gas on its way as well. Compare that to what we're seeing for LucifroN, who's only now just grabbing his tech lab, so Stim is delayed, quite a long way. Obviously the gas was delayed a long way as well, the units are delayed. That's what's forcing the second bunker out of LucifroN. He needs that second bunker just in case some aggression was coming, and all in all, when you've got a third command center, if you need this bunker, you're going to be glad you built it. If you don't need the bunker, you can salvage it, and the money you lose from salvaging it does not matter to you because you've got the third command center out. So great thought process, is great play, something you can all take away and learn from that if you do play Terran. Now, looking here, obviously the Twilight Council, the robotic facility already done. So that's quite interesting in itself, the Twilight Council coming out very early after the Robo. Perhaps it's going to be a quick tech up into High Templar, just getting the Observer out from the robotics facility. It could be various other things as well, but for the moment, the key thing you've got to worry about is, as a Terran player, is what kind of tech is my opponent going for, so I can build either Ghosts or Vikings in the late game. And that is exactly what we're seeing. More bunkers coming down though from LucifroN, who is clearly very concerned about pressure. And you can see why, because this is his vision of the map. This Stalker is effectively denying all of LucifroN's vision, and therefore he doesn't know if the expansion's down. He hasn't seen that. All he saw was that, well, there's a robotics facility there and 3 gates. So as far as you know, it could be 3-gate robo. We do have the missile turret on its way now, so this is just a bit of extra precautions in case there was going to be DTs. As we're seeing, we do have the Templar archives down. We've got the Forge getting down the +1 armor, as well as the Zealots getting down charge. So the +1 armor just allows your tanky unit in your composition, your Zealots, to soak up yet more damage. The bunkers are there quite happily, so we've got a situation where LucifroN gonna be able to deal with really anything that MaNa could be throwing at him, but of course we're seeing here MaNa isn't looking to throw any aggression on at all. Instead, getting up a few more gateways, getting out the key tech, Storm on its way, we've got Charge on its way, and the upgrades on their way. Nothing out of the robotics facility, was purely there to get the Observer out, get the information about what LucifroN is doing, and MaNa gonna be very happy seeing that, hang on, LucifroN was expecting aggression, a load of bunkers came down, that's a lot of stuff straight away. The third command center is floating down, so LucifroN is in a more happy position, salvaging those 2 bunkers, knowing that any timing window of a 3-gate robo pressure has well gone. You're not going to get much of a delay. The Observer, though, seeing now for MaNa that, hang on, those rocks are getting taken down, that means that he's taking an expansion and will, any second, see the orbital command. So there we go. That's good. The third base on its way there for MaNa as well, knowing that if my opponent's expanding, I'm safe to expand. These High Templar, just being positioned down the back here in case any medevacs came through, could have quickly got a feedback and easily dealt with those, which would have been a very, very nice thing. Should LucifroN have been trying to do that? We do have the pylon down here. The pylon's purpose here is just to pick up on any earlier detection of any medevacs coming in. So, again, clearly worried about drops, but MaNa doing everything to prepare for that. We do have the second Forge on its way, as well as the gateway. So, with Storm already finished, this is gearing up to be a bit of aggression, but MaNa definitely in a position where he can expand out of it. And, well, not expand out of it because he's already expanding, but basically produce out of it. He's thinking more long term. He's got +2 armor on its way now. Obviously the double upgrades will be starting soon, and everything else coming together nicely. Stim is done for LucifroN. He's got the 2 medevacs out, but he's not going to be in a great position to deal with this because obviously the storms are going to be very effective. Upgrade wise, it is 1-1 against 0-1, so these High Templar do need to be careful. A good storm goes down, so a few force fields trying to trap a couple of units, but the storm doesn't get as much damage as perhaps MaNa would have liked. Force fields now going down, preventing these units coming up. That should allow, with a force field there, a lot of SCVs to get taken down. A great storm dealing huge damage to the worker line there, and as long as you pick off quite a few workers here, you're going to be very happy indeed. And there goes yet another storm, picking off a couple more units. More storms still hitting. That one not quite on the money. LucifroN doing a good job to avoid them as best he can. Morphing in an Archon now, because what else do you do in this situation? You've got 2 High Templar, although they're going to die anyway. The Archon now out. It gets taken down quickly, but all in all, 20 workers killed by MaNa there. That is an awful lot of workers to die very soon, and we can see that gives him a comfortable lead in terms of the worker count. He's got a great tech advantage in my opinion. The upgrades are slightly behind, but with chrono boosts, we'll see that catch up very fast indeed. The robotics bay on its way, that means that Colossi are going to be coming out, and LucifroN getting his Ghost Academy, so straight away thinking, I know you've gone High Templar, you've committed a lot to that. LucifroN at the moment does know, he doesn't actually know that that's down, so that's good news for him. So, should be thinking, hang on, if you're on a 3 base, you're going to be getting Colossi and Ghosts, so I need to think about getting my Viking count up. But for the moment, just producing medevacs, 8 already out, so definitely needs to be thinking more future planning that, hey, I might need some Vikings fairly soon. But in comes some High Templar, some nice storms hit, a good amount of damage done there. Yep, more storms, that third one not quite on the money, but still very good indeed. And looking around, not too much really going on. We've got all of the tech lab upgrades apart from concussive shells, and here we go, more engagements coming in, these charge shots coming straight through. This is where concussive shell will be helpful, and the first Colossus is in production behind this for MaNa, so tech switching out of High Templar. Of course, the Marine Marauders with Stim and the medevac support able to push this force back, dealing very nicely with it without the threat of the storms, and this is really where you start to need those Colossi. Concussive shell on its way, Mobius reactor on its way for the Ghosts as well. The +2 infantry weapon, armor rather, halfway done. +2 armor for the Protoss, +3 armor rather started, +2 weapons not yet started, so all in all, upgrade wise, pretty equal. Slightly ahead for LucifroN compared to MaNa, but not by enough that we really have to worry about that as a deciding factor of the game for the time being. Concussive shell is nearly finished. We do have +2 weapons on their way for the Protoss player behind this, more barracks being added on as well, but still very few Vikings. There are 2 Vikings in production now, so that's good news. LucifroN preparing to deal with what's coming out. He hasn't actually scouted anything to indicate that he needs that, so just getting off instinct, knowing that, hey, with the 15-minute mark, if my opponent went High Templar first, he will be starting to mix in some Colossi. Now I've got a handful of Ghosts. I need to be thinking about what if there's a tech switch. So good thought processes, good game knowledge, good overall intuition about what should be going on from LucifroN here, which is going to put him in a nice spot. But MaNa, he's still slightly ahead in supply, getting up a 4th base as well, and that 4th base could be very important in how this game goes down. The pylons, of course, are getting cleaned up around the map. MaNa doesn't want that going down, to be honest, because not only does it potentially supply block him, but it hides his vision, and he needs that map vision as best he can to know about LucifroN's movements. Looking around, obviously, we do, of course, have MaNa getting up Blink, we have Extended Thermal Lance coming down, we have more Colossus in production. There is only 2 out on the field, so with the 3rd one, that's a nice trigger point for actually some aggression once you get the 3rd Colossi out, because that's the point where they really start shredding through infantry. With the High Templar there as well, they're able to deal a lot of damage very, very quickly, and it can be difficult for Terrans to adjust to that. In terms of the vision coming out for MaNa, well, he's got not too much. He's got the Zealot there. He does have a good look with these observers, so knows there's a couple of Vikings thrown into the mix, not that many. Knows that the ghost count very clearly. There's 7 ghosts out. There's more ghosts in production as well, so that is really steering MaNa away from the High Templar. He does still have 5 out, but not too many more on the way, and that's because if there's so many ghosts, they're not going to be as effective. They could be, the snipes are going to be good, the EMPs are going to be good, and as a result, you need to focus more on the Colossus tech. Looking around, what else? We've got obviously the cannons there. We've got another High Templar just sitting patiently at the 3rd base in case of drops. No defense in the main base though, and the reason that's not necessary is due to this 4th. This 4th naturally shields all of the drop area of the main base, so that is great news straight away for MaNa in terms of dealing with everything. But the 4th base has now been spotted. LucifroN moving out, but as we can see, 3 Colossus are there, some High Templar around as well, a good number of Zealots, and because of that, LucifroN just not ready to deal with it. He's picking off the Observer. Of course, MaNa's now got a great count on the number of Vikings out. There are 11 there against the 3 Colossus. And LucifroN does have a fraction of a supply lead, but in terms of the worker count, he's slightly behind Mules, so all in all, their incomes are fairly equal. The 4th base is down now for LucifroN. He's moving forward, but it all comes down to engagement now. That if there's some good engagements for MaNa, if he gets a good amount of damage out with Storm, and as such can deal with these Vikings quickly, he will be able to come off very well. So LucifroN needs good positioning. He hasn't been aggressive at all yet. We've seen very little stuff done. MaNa has lost quite a bit just from his own aggression and good defense by LucifroN. But all in all, I'd say this is a very close game at the moment. Upgrade-wise, we've got +3 Protoss ground weapons cannon. They're currently at 2-1 against 2-2. 3-3 about to finish up though for LucifroN. So as a result, he's going to be fractionally ahead for a couple of seconds, but once it's done, all done and dusted, it's going to be 3-3 for the majority of this game now. And as we can see, these Marauders trying to be aggressive, trying to bait LucifroN trying to bait MaNa rather into this little choke point, because at which point he's going to be in a much more comfortable position to go for some good EMPs. But if he moves forward, obviously MaNa is going to have the much better attack arc and will be able to engage effectively. So these two are really positioning themselves up, trying not to take any damage. Good scans coming off from LucifroN in the moment. Trying to work out is there anywhere I can go in, and finds a nice little area to exploit where he will nearly get a Colossus in one volley. And if he managed to do that, that would have been pretty huge, because this is the problem when you leave all the Stalkers just on their own and free. There's only 5 Stalkers there, so of course the Vikings could potentially get some good hits off. A couple of Storms hit, but not doing that much damage. The Vikings stay up. One Colossus does fall. A big warp in of more Zealots as well. So with this, MaNa trying to hold on. Both players maxed out at the moment, both on 4 bases. We do have the 5th Orbiter Command already down, though, for LucifroN, so that's good for him. And, well, more cannons just being added on by MaNa at the moment, because he's got an awful lot of gas and minerals banked up. Both these players will start climbing in the terms of the bank very quickly due to being maxed out and still having the 4-base production. We've got more Ghost Academies being added on here for LucifroN, so we may see some nukes. That would always be awesome times. A couple of storms hitting, trying to deal with that Viking count. The Vikings chasing forward, but there's a good storm. Going to force them back. Quite a few of these Vikings getting very low on health for the moment. We do have LucifroN trying to push forward, trying to poke, take any advantage he can, but he needs to keep that Viking count up. We've got 1 nuke on its way. A couple of Zealots sitting here for MaNa at the moment, so just really preparing for any type of 5th base attempt out of LucifroN, who is getting up 2 additional command centers, more barracks as well. 3 nukes now in production, so this gives a lot of zoning capability. You can start planting down nukes and have an opponent who may not be able to get around everywhere. A few Marines and Marauders are trying to pull back, trying to do a little bit of poking in there, but not going to be successful. So instead pulling back, but they do bait a couple of Zealots through. Meanwhile though, for MaNa, he's sending yet more Zealots down here, ready to deal with any attempt of a 5th base. But without these command centers finished, it doesn't look like they're going to be coming down yet. We do of course have a nuke. Where is that even going? Here we go, so a nice little nuke coming down at the moment. MaNa has got to be careful, because if that starts hitting, then you do start losing ground to the Terran player, but of course the Ghost does get picked off, so it's not going to do much more. Personal cloaking is finished, but not being used because, well, there's cannons there. So if anyone thinking, why doesn't he just cloak past? The one route he could try and take us through here and then get into the back position there isn't an observer out, so that could be one way that LucifroN could try to exploit MaNa. MaNa doing a little bit of Zealot harassment. Not too much though, to be honest. Only a couple of workers have been killed by each of these players so far. Having a look though, obviously a lot more observers are on their way. Both players have been maxed out for quite a long period of time at the moment. We have the 5th base coming down with the Zealot there though. It's not going to be able to land quite yet. LucifroN banking up huge amounts of money, as is MaNa. So quick resupplies could decide this game, to be honest, because they may very well mutually destroy each other. The Colossi moving forward, they're doing good damage. Going to be able to pick up this Planetary Fortress, but as we see, the Vikings on their way through. Some nice storms hitting at the moment though, so that is forcing the Vikings back. They've got to be so careful. The Stalker count's still pretty low, but another great storm going down. All the Colossus are cleaned up, so now it comes down to the resupply. 3 already in production for MaNa there. We do have more Stalkers on their way out, but as we can see, LucifroN moving forward. Luckily though, MaNa can pull back to those cannons to be absolutely fine for the time being. So what are we going to see? What is the aggression going to come? Well, the Ghosts are being forced back at the moment by Storms. Storms are so important in order to just buy yourself time for more units to come out. We do have a nice nuke on its way. That again is buying LucifroN some space, but a good push forward by the Terran player. The single Colossus is doing nice damage. The Storms absolutely doing tremendously there and dealing so much damage to everything, all come together, but a quick pullback. I'd rather be safe than sorry, is MaNa's thinking at the moment, waiting for those additional Colossi to reach the field. And of course now it's Gateway v a lot of infantry. The Medevac's healing well, but it looks like MaNa, just with more stuff in this fight, is going to be able to, well, hold for the time being and of course push it back for a moment. Of course, infantry against Gateway units is never going to be fun at this stage of the game, but with some good warpins coming down, a nice EMP there for LucifroN, but here come the Colossi. This is a really big turning point. Those 2 Colossi are going to massively help as long as the Vikings can get taken down quite quickly. So the Stalkers focusing down the Vikings. MaNa now with the supply lead, he's going to be producing a lot more Colossus very, very quickly indeed. More Vikings joining the field, but Stalkers still in good count, and we see that with the aid of that Colossus, and the second Colossus does now just fall quite clearly. MaNa pushing forward very aggressively, clearing out a lot of this stuff. The Ghosts against Stalkers, never going to be a fun fight. And as a result, MaNa, he is able to start really dominating this game. And just good warpins, maybe a bit of overexertion by LucifroN. We can see more Medevacs getting taken out, SCVs getting picked off. And with this, we are seeing LucifroN in problems. And remember, the bank we did have, that is completely vaporized. But MaNa now at nearly double the supply of that of his opponent, pulling back, trying to save as many units as he can, waiting for all of these Archons to start morphing in. An awful lot of Colossi there as well. 3 Colossi and what is a crazy kind of Archons with 6 of them out. That is a very powerful force. All 5 bases rather up for both players at the moment. So because of that, they are both at the absolute maximum saturation they're going to be able to do. This base hasn't been able to land though for LucifroN. That's quite important because we saw the planetary fortress get taken out, the main and the natural pretty much mined out, the third base getting quite low for the Terran player, but in comes MaNa yet again doing more damage. He's going to be able to take out this command center, and there is the GG out of LucifroN, knowing he just does not have enough stuff to deal with that. So, Game 2 is done. Leveled up the series, 1-1. If you did enjoy, make sure you like the video, make sure you leave a cool comment and subscribe. I'll catch you at Game 3 any second. It's over on my channel. See you there.